Next, we're going to look at some tools, and we'll go through one page at a time just to show you a picture of it if you haven't seen it, and if you have seen it, you'll remember these hopefully at first glance. This is a root cause analysis. It's also called the Ishikawa fishbone diagram, quite descriptive. It looks like a fishbone. And it says at this end, what is the problem? What is the issue we're trying to analyze? Here there was iron that was found inside the product, which is not a desired outcome. So then we have these 6 factors that may have caused the problem, and their measurement of the item itself, the iron, the materials that were used in the manufacturing, the methods that were used in the manufacturing and measurement of iron content, then the environment in which the manufacturing occurred, manpower that was involved in the maintenance and manufacturing of the product, and then the machines themselves. And we then break these into details, and we will then hopefully get to the bottom of it and see what's happening, right? So that's an example of a root cause, and it's just an organized way to be thorough in looking at all the possible things that are wrong and hypothesize as to what might be happening. And with that series of testing, we'll get to the bottom of the issue. The next topic is lean manufacturing. Sometimes we call this Japanese manufacturing techniques. It's a bit ironic because one of the people that was credited with bringing these techniques to Japan was an American, William Deming, and he brought this to Japan because he didn't have as willing an audience in the United States. It's a shame because we've been playing catch up ever since. So this is broadly characterized as lean manufacturing technique, and you can see it encompasses things like just in time. Just in time just means everything arrives just in time, raw materials, the subcomponents of manufacturing, so everything rolls smoothly from the intake of raw materials all the way through the factory to the output, in this case, in Toyota's case, a car. And along the way, we have all types of things to ensure that we have good processes and good team dynamics in how we run the plant. So these are collectively called Japanese manufacturing techniques or lean manufacturing. The third is continuous improvement. Again, this has roots into Japanese techniques, and the word kaizen captures the idea of small incremental improvements that collectively mean big changes. So this is a cycle of continuous improvement. These are actually words to live by. We want to epitomize continuous improvement in our own lives and in our businesses. So this goes through a cycle of getting everyone involved, looking at problems, encouraging people to brainstorm and come with solutions, testing it, make sure it works, adopt it, and then go do it all over again, right? Continuously, as the name implies. The fourth topic is TQM, Total Quality Management, and these are all highly related, and these are the 8 elements of TQM that move toward quality in everything we do inside of a company, with the idea that the end product to the customer is encompassing and has the characteristics of the quality we seek. There are certifications. In this case, it's 6 Sigma. There are many certifications these days related to these advanced practices or preferred practices, and 6 Sigma is one of them. 6 Sigma relates to the standard deviation. It's not one standard deviation, which is 1 Sigma. It's 6 Sigmas. Way, way out there, so the probability of default is approaching 0. And that's what we mean by 6 Sigma. It means we're approaching perfection in what we do. And sometimes you hear these terms like, I'm a black belt, right? A black belt is an accomplishment of a certain level of proficiency in the techniques. And here it's called a full-time project leader would be a black belt. The next technique is benchmarking. Benchmarking we've seen before, and it's where we compare something to another. And in this case, we're comparing ourselves to another company or an industry average. So step 1 is let's measure ourselves. Step 2 is find a peer group. Again, they may be aggregated so as not to be confidential in nature, aggregated numbers from an industry. Then we learn from that comparison. Are we stronger, weaker, and try to see why. And in that question of why, then leads to action that we can do to improve our performance. Our next topic is a necessary evil, and that's overhead allocation. We will not get into this much inside our course, but it is an important item inside companies. And why? Because we manage profitability not at the corporate level, but at the division or product level. And in order to do that, we have to capture the cost that is involved in a product or the cost that's involved in a division. That's why we need to do it. It's not just to keep accountants fully employed. Then the basics are, it sounds simple, right? Let's see, if I have rent, would I just take the rent in total and divide it by the square foot? And then based on that, if I occupy 10,000 square feet, it would just be 10,000 times that number. It seems like an easy thing. Well, that's an example of what works. It works when it's an objective measure that matches the economics of how much resources is taken up by that particular department. When it doesn't work are examples when it's not in the control of the manager. For example, if there's a corporate jet that the CEO flies around the world in, and the manager in a division somewhere in the middle of the country gets charged for a part of the corporate jet, he or she won't be very happy because they didn't get to ride that jet. So when it seems like it's just appearing out of thin air, no pun intended, and it just hits the profitability of a department or a manager, that doesn't feel right. The other side is where it becomes arbitrary. It just says, okay, I get it, I use this particular item, but the method by which you allocate it doesn't seem right. So, for example, on that rent, if you just took the number of products in a building and you say, oh, I'm just going to divide the rent by total products, and you say, wait a minute, I have this tiny little product. Why is this product being charged so much rent? There's a product down there that has a lot of volume. You should charge them more rent. And that is an example where it seems a little arbitrary or not really capturing the economics. So that gives you some examples with numbers, and that will illustrate the point. So the first is, let's look at the wrong way, then let's look at the right way. And we'll do this in Excel. What we see here on the left side is an example of a company with 8 products and also some parts sales. And they have dollar sales here, $51 million, and the percent, simple math there, just showing each product and their respective percentages. Then on the top here, we have the total cost of 2 departments, order processing and customer service. And it's 1.2 million and 750. We say, well, that's 1.95. Let's just divide it based on sales. So I said, okay, 3% of 1.2 million. And again, I need a reference where that does not move, F4. And I can copy that. So this allocates the total amount of 1.2 million across the products based on their percentage of the total sales. Pretty easy math. Next one is customer service, same thing. That percent times the 750, lock it with an F4, and copy it. And we've allocated 750. So now we have the total overhead charged to product line 1 of 34 plus 21, which is 56. So the net is the sales minus the cost, so far anyway. And we can copy that. That represents the amount of money net of these 2 overhead departments of how much we got. And no surprise, the margin or the percentage that remains is the same, 96%. Now, what's wrong with this? I bashed it. Like, why is it wrong? Well, what if product line number 1 absorbs a lot of resources way beyond the 3% of sales that it comprises? Then they just got a deal. They got charged 3% of the cost when they absorb all of the customer service and the ordering resources in the company just to handle this fairly small part of the business. Well, then it doesn't seem right because they've been subsidized by the items. Let's say on the other side, we have a big product line number 6, and they're saying, whoa, wait a minute. The reason I'm big is I have very few, very large orders from very few customers. And because of that, I don't take nearly as much of the resources that comprise my percent. I have 25% of sales are my product, but I don't have 25% of the orders. I don't have 25% of the customer service. So this shows the weakness is that, yeah, it's easy and it's objective based on percent of sales, but it doesn't mean it's right. And that goes back to this point, is that does it work? Well, it doesn't work because the allocation does not seem to mirror the economics of what's going on here. So is there a better way?